there's a strike going on, which the RMT probably could have stopped, probably could have prevented, but clearly don't want to prevent.
Well, they should have never started it in the first place. They balloted before they even knew what was going to be on the table. And they told their members they weren't going to get a rise at all, which was incorrect. Yeah. I mean, they obviously just want to justify, these top barons want to justify their huge salaries and think they're doing something by calling everybody out. But well done you for getting in, and all those nurses and doctors and all the people we rely on to get to work, regardless.
Because there will be people, I'm afraid, who haven't been able to get to work, who therefore won't make any money today, people who will miss their appointments with a doctor, maybe with a hospital that they've waited possibly a year to do. We've got people possibly who won't be able to get in to do their exams, A-level students, that kind of thing. You know, it's a very reckless way to behave, isn't it?
Well, certainly it is. If they've been negotiating for months and months and months and they were being very unfairly treated, then the public would be far more on their side, I would suggest. But as it is, immediately they want to go out on strike. They want to pull everybody else out on strike as well. You can see that this is their intention. But, I mean, especially with the rail workers, an awful lot of them earn a lot more money than people that you were surrounded by this morning trying to get into work to earn a decent day's wage.
Absolutely right. Well, many of them make at least twice what the average wage is. Many of them also work a 4-day week. Their paying conditions are unlike almost any other job that now currently exists. Because, do you know what I think has happened over the years? And you might be able to point me in the right direction on this. And I saw this happening in the print business as well back in the bad old days of newspaper production, when print unions just used to dictate when the paper would come out and when it wouldn't come out. The bottom line for me is that over the years, their paying conditions have just got better and better and better, because every time they went to the rail companies to ask for something, they always got it.
Well, that's right. I mean, we've been looking a lot into their pensions, TfL pensions. The employers pay 31% into contributions into their pensions. It's ridiculous. You've also got to look at everything as a business, in all honesty. And if you were running a business, you've got to keep up to date. You've got to keep up with modern technology, etc. Well, you've got people on various television programmes on the radio saying, oh, we want job security, etc. But if they're in a job that actually can be better done by machinery now, and moved into a different part of the organisation, then that's what should happen. But of course, the unions are so militant, so single-minded. They won't even look at these things. You can't run a business and not move with the times, and they're not prepared to move with the times.
No, I think almost every rail network in the world uses drones now to check for safety on the track. We don't do that because the unions say we can't. They have to use men walking up and down the track, which takes a lot longer and involves paying more people to do the job that could be done by a machine.
And it's a lot more dangerous. I'm pretty sure it would have been on Talk TV this morning, that 6 rail workers have been killed doing this very job. I mean, the unions are there to protect their workers. I would hardly say any of this was protecting them. No. And I would suggest they most certainly don't have the public behind them. They've just called this strike because they just thought they would, as opposed to because they've been done down, quite frankly.
There's no question that their motivation is pure and simple. They want to get rid of the Tory government. They want to have they've said, I mean, Mick Lynch has actively said he wants to have a class war. He says the Tories are all billionaires, which is not true. Says that they're all butchering the economy, which is also not true. The RMT are butchering the economy. I've got a note here from somebody called Barney. He says, 11 people on my team, only one has been able to get to work today. 10 of us have had to take a holiday today and Thursday.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I think it came out from the government that I think almost a third of the people that work for the railways are paying higher rate tax, which means that over a third of them are over 50 grand a year. They're not being paid badly. Their conditions are extremely good. Some of the perks, especially on TfL, I could go on forever about that, are things that you and I would dream of. But nevertheless, they think that they'll just hold us all to ransom. It's quite disgraceful.
It is. Because, again, many people who had to work through the pandemic, who are not in the public sector, and this seems to be breaking down to all people who work in the public sector want to go on strike. You know, many of them have got much better pay deals than the private sector these days. They've certainly got better benefits, and they've certainly got better pensions. So, you know, the idea that doctors, teachers, barristers, you know, post workers, you know, all these people who are saying they're going to go on strike, you know, this is a concerted effort, it seems to me, to try and bring back the bad old days.
Yes, certainly is. And I listened to the interview that was on with Julia earlier. I've forgotten the chap's name.
Yes.
And one of his comments was all these people with posh voices. And you think, yeah, this is what it's all about. You think that the Tories have all got a fortune, as you said earlier. And no, we haven't, actually. We just believe in different things to the communists that seem to be running the unions at the moment.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that the unions only really now exist in the public sector? You know, the private sector unions pretty much don't exist, not because anybody killed them off, but because the unions themselves sort of committed so many acts of self-harm that there isn't that much manufacturing anymore in this country, thanks to them. Yes,
that's right. They need to look at the bigger picture. And I would suggest that the rail bosses or the rail unions are certainly not looking at the bigger picture. Do they not understand that their customer base is reducing? This will make it reduce even more. The taxpayer are actually putting billions into the railways. At some point, those of us that are funding them are getting very fed up with this because a lot of them earn a lot more than we do.
Absolutely right. Speaking of which, Sadiq Khan, I saw you were quoted in the papers at the weekend, 34,000 quid wasted on a trip to America. For what purpose? We do not know.
No, just standing amongst a load of cannabis plants.
Well,
looking
I mean,
even less intelligent than normal.
Well, exactly right. Standing with a load of plants is probably quite a good place for him to be. But, you know, what's he saying about, you know, because Keir Starmer doesn't seem to know whether he supports these strikes or not. I found a tweet that he put out in February talking about standing shoulder to shoulder with his union fellows and how absolutely this is the time for him to show solidarity. Well, he's not really showing solidarity, even though some members of his party are. What's the Sadiq Khan line on this?
Oh, well, he's wringing his hands and saying, oh, nobody wants to strike. I mean, they'll all get splinters from the fence that they're all sitting on because the trouble is the unions, not the RMT with Khan, but I mean, they have received money from unions over the years and some of them still are. They're paymasters, so they don't say too much. And then equally, because they're politicians, they must realise that the public do not want these strikes. It can't help anybody. Given that we've been through such hell for the last 2 years, we all need to try and pull together. And I wouldn't mind if they were the lowest paid. They certainly are not.
No, and this is really just not the time. I'm just going to interrupt for a second. I'm getting a couple of people telling me that there's talk of a fire with about 60 firefighters tending it at the moment out in West London in another high-rise block. I'm not sure whether we can confirm that at the moment, but Christine has texted in saying that she's just had a text from a friend of hers about 8 fire engines, about 60 firefighters, not very far away from Grenfell Tower. So we'll keep people updated on that, Susan. I'm guessing you haven't heard anything about that.
No, I haven't. That's very worrying.
Yeah, it really is. Let's talk some more about the Labour Party. David Lammy, a London MP, now joins Sir Keir Starmer as under investigation for non-declaration of some kind of gift.
Well, I'm glad you've mentioned it because I doubt it would be on many of the other outlets. It's amazing, isn't it? If he was a Tory, it would be plastered over everything. But holier than thou, Mr. Lammy, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yes. And I mean, it's astonishing, really, how much money some of these MPs have coming through their sort of doors, as it were. You know, many of them say that it's obviously for expenses, that they have to pay various members of staff. You know, David Lammy seems to spend most of his time on the radio in another place, not this one, he doesn't come on my show. And, you know, pontificating right, left and centre. And here he is. And they have no shame, these people, either. Here he is caught up in something which you should consider yourself very, very sort of harshly rebuked, shouldn't you, if you're him?
Well, no, because if you're a Labour politician, you know that really talk radio is the one place that will pick these things up, and I'm very grateful to you that you do. Yeah. Because it's passed over by everybody else. So because they get quite complacent because they know that the furor that will attack a Tory MP is a different matter to the fact that they'll be ignored if this happens.